perhaps one of the most common boxes that people tend to acquire because they're lightweight and they're easy to transport is the Lamppost Mounted Box. And we have an almost entire collection of them here. There's just one version which we don't have. So let's have a quick look at those. These two, which look very similar, but you can see we've got two different ciphers, are what are known as Wagon Top Boxes, because the elliptical roof looks a bit like the top of a covered wagon from the Wild West. The one on the left with the birch hanger plate on it, that's the rare one. That's George V. It was made in 1935, which was in fact the year he died. So very, very quickly the patterns were changed to George VI, which you can see on the right here, with the South Terrace Dockyard Portsmouth plate on it. So the G6R ones are a lot more common than these plain GR ones. According to the Letterbox Study Group, there are less than 50 of these on the street, whereas there's still quite a good number of the George VI version. But we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here. Let's go back to the beginning of the design of the lamp letterbox, and we're going to swing round to right down here, and the first lamp letterboxes, which were introduced in 1899. Consequently, they have the Victoria cipher on. There is an extremely rare version of which there is now only one or possibly two left in the country that on the top there have the word letters, but they don't have the word only. And I say possibly because the second one's been modified around the aperture, so it's quite difficult to see whether the word only was ever there. But the famous one is in the middle of Romney Marsh. The original idea for these boxes was that they would be attached to lampposts in London streets so that gentlemen could go out late in the evening and post their correspondence. Today, most of them are not in the cities at all. They're in the rural areas, and in fact, your best chance of seeing these boxes is to go out into the countryside. Next to the Victoria one, of course, we've got an Edward VII closed cipher box. The one that's missing from the collection is the Edward VII open cipher. Only about 10% of the Edward boxes had the open cipher, and they're extremely scarce. Then we get onto the long reign of George V, a 25-year reign from 1910 to 1935. The initial one, seen here, has the crown surmounting the GR in a very nice, neat little cipher. But that was soon simplified to just the large GR. And then there are several manufacturers of these boxes. This one's actually got the hoops for putting it on the telegraph pole, still connected. But if we look at this one, you can see the maker's name here, Darby Castings. Darby Castings only existed for about 1 year in 1932 through to 1933, so that's quite a rare box. It very soon was taken over and became W.T. Allen. It itself was a reincarnation of a previous foundry called Andrew Handyside, who had made that version. So we've got also long door going right down to the base there, and short door which stops before the base version. So there's a lot of different versions of these cast iron lamp boxes. But by the time we get up to the 1940s and this George VI elliptical top one, the post office had realised that cast iron was just way too expensive, and that really they needed galvanised sheet steel with a cast iron front, and that's where the standard design that you'd be familiar with from the street comes in. So if we come down here, there's the first of the George VI ones, introduced designed during the wars, the 1940 pattern, but not actually manufactured until afterwards, and then perpetuated in many, many different varieties into the era of the present Queen. First as post office, and then much later as Royal Mail, and you can see a Scottish Crown one there. The sun just making it a little bit difficult to pick these out. There's a whole wall of these things because there are so many foundries and so many different manufacturers of them. You'll find names on them like Karen Company, W.T. Allen, Carronade, Abbott, and finally Macon Engineering. Sitting on top of them are a selection of our French wall boxes. These are 3 actually, are all by Dejoie and Company of Nantes. But we also have a Della Chanel, which is down here being worked on at the moment. It was time for a repaint, so the Della Chanel box is just drying out with its second coat of paint at the moment. Interestingly, there are 2 of these Della Chanels actually in postal use in the UK, one at Royston and one at Woodbridge, both obtained by their respective twinning associations. Let's have a closer look at this is the current version, or the later version of the wall box. You can see it's a Royal Mail one, and that is a Macon Engineering, or just Macon Scotland. Unfortunately, Macon went into liquidation in 2015, and the boxes today are nearly all being supplied by Romex Serious Engineering, which we saw in the earlier video. Just pan round that wall of boxes there. Unfortunately, my wife has decided to put this huge trug full of plants in the way, which is really not helping. On the bottom here, we've got a whole load of B-size wall boxes as well, which we'll cover in a separate video.